Hey guys, this is John from US Dash Camera. Today I got a review of the Transcend DrivePro 50. This was actually sent to me for review by Transcend, so I'd like to thank them. This camera is basically their entry-level camera that does away with anything other than the bare essentials needed for an adequate dash camera. It does actually come with a 16GB Transcend high-endurance memory card also, which is pretty nice, and I always use Transcend memory cards myself, so I think they're pretty reliable, and I don't even use any of their high-endurance cards. While they say this camera gets away with any of the features other than the essentials, it does actually have Wi-Fi, so it does use an app if you want to change the settings or save files. Now, one thing to point out is this does actually have a small battery, not a supercapacitor, and that's pretty common in a lot of cheaper cameras. But the battery won't allow you to record by itself with the car off. It's just there to make sure the file can save after you shut your car off or if there's a sudden loss of power. So this camera retails for around $90. It's just 1080p 30 frames a second, so it's nothing fancy, but that's what they're going for here. It's actually very light at only 49 grams. There's no screen on it either, so it's basically as light as a dash camera can be. Now, one thing they do like to advertise with this camera is the 1.8 aperture, so that supposedly allows it to have better nighttime quality or better low light conditions. So here you can see the memory card right on top, 16GB high endurance. And here's the camera. It's very small, no screen on the back. We got an emergency button if you want to lock a file. And like most cameras, it does have a G sensor to lock files if it senses a big G shock. So it uses mini USB for power. So now let's take a look at what else is in the box. We got a manual in multiple different languages. We got a warranty card and some advertisements. Mine came with a suction cup mount. It's really small actually. The connection is similar to G1W's, where it has that little slot that fits into the camera. This isn't my favorite style of camera, but it works and it's cheap. I do like how discreet the matte black looks. You can actually get one with an adhesive mount also, but I just happen to get the suction cup version. And the 12-volt power supply, which uses mini USB like I said. There is an LED indicator, but nothing else. So it's a pretty basic camera. There are cheaper cameras out there with more features, but a lot of those are Chinese brands that a lot of people in the US or Canada have never heard of. So some people might be hesitant to buy one of those, and they might want to go with something more trustworthy, a name brand like Transcend. Now, I would have to say, I was somewhat pleasantly surprised. I thought the video quality was actually pretty decent. A lot of times companies will just put their name on some cheap Chinese-made cameras with no better video quality than any other cheap Chinese cameras out there, but I thought the detail in these clips were actually pretty good. It goes around 11 to 12 megabits per second at 1080p 30 frames per second, so it's nothing mind-blowing. It's pretty standard, but at the same time it doesn't look bad at all, at least in the day clips. So when you pause it, you can see blades of grass on the side of the road pretty well. You can make out license plates at a pretty far edge of the screen pretty well, as long as they're not too far away. So overall, I'm satisfied with the video quality, at least like I said, during the day. Now, the night isn't terrible either. It is pretty bright. I would say very bright actually compared to a lot of other cameras, but in some ways it actually looks too bright. Oftentimes some cameras will be either too dark or too bright, and I feel like this leans towards too bright, where the lights actually wash out some of the picture. The colors also didn't seem as natural to me at night, while they did during the day. But this isn't anything uncommon with a lot of cheaper cameras. Like I said earlier, it's $90, so it's not the cheapest out there, but it's not super expensive. It's not going to break your bank or anything. And another thing is you can actually change the exposure levels, so this is the default settings. A lot of people aren't going to change the exposure settings, so this is what they're going to see. But if you don't have any issues going into the settings yourself, it's not a problem because you can just adjust the exposure to your liking. And I'll give a quick sample of the audio. So it sounds pretty clear. I didn't think it sounded muffled or anything. You can hear my turn signal just fine and very clearly. It does sound pretty sharp. Now I just wanted to do a quick comparison of a screenshot from the Transcend, and you'll see it is pretty bright like I said, but when you compare it to the DD-Pi, you'll see that the DD-Pi seems to handle the lighting a lot more realistically, or it's not washed out. But the DrivePro 50 does look brighter overall, so you're definitely seeing more, but at the same time, like I said, some of the lights from the street lights are flooding out the image a little bit. Both of them are pretty grainy though, so a lot of cameras have problems with graininess at night. So now let's go ahead and look at the Wi-Fi app. Now the Wi-Fi is always on, and it'll come up as DrivePro 50. The default password is 12345678. And make sure you do get the DrivePro new app, because the old one won't work. So even while you're connected to the Wi-Fi, you do have to connect, and then it will connect to it and give you a live feed. The live feed is actually pretty quick. There isn't much of a delay compared to a lot of other Wi-Fi cameras I've tested. Here you can see your files. So you can watch your files. And it's pretty quick. And then you can also download or delete the files. Now downloading it takes really long. These clips are 3 minutes long and about 12 megabits per second including audio, and I'm going to actually have to speed it up because it takes quite a long time. I'm not sure if this is normal, but the total time took about 3.5 minutes. So I think that's a little crazy considering the clip is only 3 minutes. Now here's the settings. We got 1080p or 720p. There's the exposure value settings. We got video length. I have it at 3 minutes, but I'm going to switch to 1. You can turn the timestamp on or off. We got the G sensor, low, medium, or high. Microphone for audio. Delay power off is if you want it to stay on longer when your car shuts off. We got the time settings. You can use a 24-hour clock if you want. You can change the name of the SSID and the password. And then we got format SD card or firmware upgrade. And that's about it in the whole app, so it's pretty simple, but it has everything you need to throw this into your car, get recording, and have pretty great daytime footage and adequate, pretty standard night footage. So when it comes down to it, if you would prefer to buy a camera from a well-known company or a company that's going to have a lot of documentation and actual customer support if you do have any issues, this isn't a bad option. I personally would recommend a better, higher-end model. You don't have to get a $300 Korean 2-channel system, But at the same time, if you do just want something very simple, this is a great option. It does at least have Wi-Fi, so iOS and Android users can change the settings and download files. That way you never have to take the camera down or take the memory card out to save files. And the fact that Transcend does include a 16 gigabyte high endurance memory card is pretty nice. So it's been over 2 years for me using dash cameras, and to this day the G1W is still really popular. So would I recommend this over the G1W? It's really up to you. Do you want to spend $30 more and get a camera that's much more discreet and has Wi-Fi with an iOS and Android app? Now the video quality isn't any better really for $30 more, but at least you do get the 16 gigabyte high endurance memory card, so there is that. I'd like to thank Transcend again for sending this out to me for review. As usual, I will provide a link down below to this camera if you're interested in purchasing it. I typically leave a link down to where I have a list of a lot of my other favorite cameras if you're interested in checking out what else I recommend. And if you like this video or my other videos, I'd appreciate it if you hit like and subscribe. I also do have a Facebook group. I haven't been super active on it just because I don't have that many followers, so it sort of pushes me away from using it that often when there's not many people even viewing it. So if we can get those numbers up, I'll probably be a lot more active on there, and I would comment and answer any questions people have about deciding on different dash cameras. I'm always willing to do that. So as usual, thanks for watching, drive safe, and I'll see you next time.